Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Knope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second biggest podcast in the Pacific Northwest, Business Over Beer. Knope.
Yeah.
We're at part two. Who do we have in part two in this episode?
We have Lacey Faught with Spry Digital.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You didn't run away at the bathroom break. We really appreciate that.
My bladder's relieved. I feel great.
So you're ready to drink more beer.
Yes.
Hang on there, Ben. We're getting there.
Just a moment.
Just settle down. In case anybody might have missed part one, I can't imagine that anybody would have missed part one. Would you please give us a reminder of Spry social media and just, kind of the 50,000 foot view of your business?
Yep. Spry, we focus specifically on social media. And as we talked a little bit about before, on social media for good. So, if you're selling shoes and you're trying to make a buck, we might not be the best person to work with you. But if you're selling shoes and you also have this cause that you're working on that builds your community, then we might be willing to have a discussion about working together. So we like to work with people who are actually trying to bring more good into the world because there's just too much noise right now. And we're at a point where we get to pick and choose who we want to work with, and that's where our values lie. So
wow, and she chose to work with us still, so I feel pretty good.
Good, I'm glad.
Awesome.
That's how you should feel. It's on purpose.
No, but in all seriousness, though, in part one was great. We talked a little bit about your background, and you started your business at a very young age, and we kind of got into that and some of the lessons you learned as a young business owner, and we just, I think, scratched the surface of this social media for good, so I'm really looking forward to getting into to more of that. But before we get there, Ben?
Yes?
Did you drink a beer during the break, or are you still thirsty?
I drank a beer during the break, but I am still thirsty.
So those two things are not mutually exclusive.
No, not even close.
Got it. Well, we are back doing this on a Friday.
That's good. It's a Friday. It's a Friday.
It is a Friday.
Like evening. This is perfect.
Yeah, and that's why we do it at this time. So let her rip.
All right. Lacey.
Yeah.
Every episode of Business Over Beer, my lovely wife Angela brings us a mystery beer. We call this segment Angie's Mystery Beer. Here's how it works. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. You have a bottle opener on you, correct? Boom. What you're going to do is you see that bottle?
Yes.
Of the bag bottle thing in front of you. You're going to open that.
Okay.
Pour a little bit into your glass. You're
Okay.
not going to unveil what the bottle is.
Okay.
Pour a little bit, pour a little bit, pour a little bit. We're all going to take a sip. And we're trying to guess what kind of beer it is.
Okay.
It's a game we play.
No big whoop.
No
All right,
big
I'm
whoop.
going for it.
Right.
It's got a yellow lid. Does that
Yeah.
help any of you?
She made sure. She's like, so tell Jonathan it doesn't have a...
There's nothing on the cap. There's nothing on the cap.
There's nothing on the cap.
Why?
Oh, look
Oh,
at that
God.
coming out. Oh, my
boy.
goodness.
Oh, look at the.
I'm already worried.
Why is she attacking me? It's her job. She's committed to this. If she can't do it properly, that's on her, not me.
Man, you got
Oh.
pouring skills are legit. Hooey.
Oh, wow. It has quite an aroma, doesn't it?
I think I'm going to like this.
Oh, jeez.
God, that
Is that
smells
enough for
good.
you?
Wow, that smells
No.
delicious.
But there's still more in the bottle.
Prost.
Prost.
She
smells
did
delicious.
say she did say it sounded
Wow.
so good. She bought two, one for herself.
Well, it smells incredible.
I was going to say, I haven't even taken a sip yet. It's hazelnut.
Yeah. It's nutty.
It smells like caramel corn to me.
Oh gosh, it does. It has that caramel corn.
It tastes like
flavor to it, but it's
Almost chocolatey.
Oh, it's
it's-
chocolate. It's chocolate. Oh, that's delicious.
yeah, it's
Holy cow.
the caramel backbone, the hazelnut on the nose.
It's hazelnut.
See, I'm not getting the chocolate. I'm getting caramel.
I
I'm
get
getting
chocolate.
Caramel, vanilla, kind of.
and I'm getting coffee in the back. That
The
coffee
hazelnut
with-
in the smell is very strong.
I don't get that. I don't get the hazelnut when I taste it. I get caramel and sweetness, and then coffee, real bitter coffee in the back.
It makes me want to put a scoop of ice cream in it, actually.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's where that's where I think the chocolate comes in, because I don't get the coffee much.
No, you're not getting the coffee. At
Not
the
really.
back,
I can taste it.
I don't really get the coffee.
And I could
Once,
be,
once
my
the
palate
sweetness
could be.
settles, then it just
Ah. Ooh. Damn, that's good.
But it's really sweet.
It is really sweet.
It's a little
Really
boozy
sweet.
on the
dessert.
back.
It's boozy.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a barrel aged. There's no way. There's no way. If it is, that's impressive for a barrel aged. If it's barrel aged.
So the only hazelnut beer I know
Rogue.
is Rogue. That's the only one that I know of. So that's what I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess.
Do I get to unveil it?
I'm gonna guess that it's the Rogue hazelnut. I think it's a porter. The hazelnut
Yeah.
porter from Rogue.
I feel like there's a flavor of like a date or a fig in there.
See, I don't get any of that. I don't get the coffee. I don't get any of that. I get
It could be my taste buds.
I get the hazelnut
Oh, definitely.
On
and
the-
chocolate.
oh,
the
yeah.
chocolate.
See, I think you're
It immediately
confusing.
smells like some cinnamon
I think you're confusing the caramel for the chocolate. I don't think it's chocolate.
And yeah, and
Yeah, I don't know.
should
You've
have-
had
I should have rinsed my.
Yeah, that's probably true. We should know better than that. And you should have had
I
some
mean-
garlic cheese.
I was going to say, the three of us had some garlic cheese.
All right.
I'm really curious.
Oh my goodness!
Any other guesses?
Is that boozy at the end?
powerful.
That's the coffee.
There it
Yep.
is.
Now the coffee.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
Big reveal time.
Okay,
what do we
here
got?
we go. Ready?
Hold on. My social media person said I should be taking
For the gram. Here we go.
for the gram.
Oh, coffee peanut butter cup porter.
Oh.
Porter with peanut butter powder, coffee, and lactose.
That's
Wow.
that's that vanilla and the caramel. That's
yeah.
doing the lactose is what creates that. Peanut butter. See, I don't
So
taste peanut
so that
I can tell.
hazelnut.
that you thought was hazelnut is
It's
peanut
peanut
butter.
butter.
Yeah.
Peanut butter.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I get
though.
that. I get that. The smell of this beer is fantastic.
Yes, it really
just
is.
Smells incredible.
I'd like a candle.
Yes.
I'd like a
Yeah.
candle with this.
I could go for that.
Yes.
I would always be hungry though. I'd be like, well, what's nothing new.
That's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I'm trying so hard to find the
take a
peanut
little
butter
more.
when I drink
It's
it.
hazelnut.
When you drink it,
When
you
I
don't.
drink
I
it.
don't. I don't taste the peanut butter either.
And who is it? Who did we say it was?
She got
Did
it.
we?
She got it at Trader Joe's.
We didn't say who it was. It is Campanology Brewing. 9% alcohol, so it's very high octane
Makes sense.
as we
That's
would
that
expect.
boozy you were tasting.
Yep.
You're right, Knoper. Jeez.
From your neck of the woods, my friend. From Waunakee, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Campanology Brewing.
Waunakee, Wisconsin.
I like the art
There you
on
go.
the label.
Trader Joe's. Mm-hmm. Always
Wow.
has some
You were
unique stuff.
You were so right with the coffee too.
Well, I have a very refined palate. I'm very smart.
I can tell.
Yeah.
That last swig,
Me and Danielle would probably get along just fine. Maybe she can be on the show next week. Do you have a card for her? No, forget it.
You know, it's almost like a butterscotch type to me.
Yeah. I think
The
that's
smell
what-
and the taste.
Oh, I can smell that.
That's that.
Yeah.
That's that caramely. It is almost
Yeah.
more butterscotch
Yeah.
than like real caramel. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it's a super interesting beer. I like how interesting it is. I think the flavors all work together. It's pretty well balanced.
Dude, you got the coffee. I didn't taste it at all.
Wouldn't drink a ton of these.
It's like a dessert. It's a dessert beer.
It would be
100%.
awesome as a float.
That was enough.
Yeah.
It's delicious, but that was enough.
I gave myself a little more.
9%.
So did he.
Prost.
Prost. Yeesh.
I dig the flavor of that.
Here's your nerdy can opener back.
Oh, thank you.
Bottle opener, excuse me.
McAfee. That guy's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Lacey, let's talk more about kind of the 2020, because we've asked a lot of small business owners on the podcast. How did you audible? How did you shift? How did you get somewhere? How did you get to where you probably have a different business to where you probably excelled a little bit? I don't want to speak for you, but did you have a little bit of a bump in your business because of 2020?
Our revenue didn't increase. However, we maintained well. I was able to continue to hire on new people, especially with the help of the PPP loans that we got. That was really nice for us. What was the most interesting was just how much the current clients that we did have really leaned on the services that we have. And also, 55% of our overall revenue is subscription clients. So people who are paying us every single month for actually managing their accounts. What grew during pandemic was people who did one-off sessions with us. You know, they came in for a 2-hour strategy session to figure out, oh my God, for the first time ever, I need to understand crisis communications. And social media was the best way for them to have direct contact with their customers, immediate changes, right? When everything was happening with mask mandates, and we did some free work for restaurants, and anybody in the food and bev industry, we did some free consulting with, because they were the ones impacted the most at this time, right? And they needed to be able to have quick, direct conversations with their customers, and that was all happening through social media. So crisis communications ended up being one of the biggest things that people leaned on us for, updating people's Instagram bios right away with whether they were open or whether they were closed, whether you needed masks right away, whether, they had adjusted hours of operations if they were pickup only as a restaurant. So that was the first time that we'd ever really had to deal with crisis communications. But clients leaned on us a lot to just figure out what the best way was to handle that crisis communications during those times.
Did you have a variety of people contact you at that point? I mean, you had the food service business industry, but did you have people like, wow, they contacted us?
Do you remember what it was like when all of a sudden every single day, every email newsletter you ever signed up for, you got an email that was like, our COVID-19 protocols are, so that you knew how they were sanitizing their stores. Like Best Buy was messaging you, and like Office Max that you haven't been to in 8 years was emailing
That's right.
you. And so, yeah, there were a bunch of random businesses that were saying, should we be doing this? Like, is this something we should be doing? And a lot of them, we were like, no. There isn't really a reason for you to email every person in your email list right now that you're using antibacterial spray in your store. Like, they get it, okay? But sometimes people just need to hear that, So a lot of that wasn't really revenue generating for us, but it was relationship building when people knew that they could reach out to somebody for advice on what to do or what not to do during this really unstable time.
For me, I just think of all the different businesses that you've had to have been in contact with before the pandemic. They were like, well, I don't need no social media. I don't need no TikTokers and tweets.
Oh, you know Tony too.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that one girl, that Lacey girl, yeah, can we contact her real quick? Was there any of those that you had? I'm just curious because...
Yeah, absolutely. There was. I know we've never done this before, and we talked about starting this like 6 months ago, and I probably should have done that by now, but I'm like, all right, well, listen, all you really need to do is update your Instagram bio. Just, what are your hours of operation now? And you're going to be fine. Okay. Where can they contact you? Just, direct them to your website contact form, because that's the only place you're actually going to be checking. So yeah, there were a lot of people who maybe should have been doing some community building on social media. So they had that avenue already set for people. Mm-hmm. And so we had to say, okay, well, that's not really going to be a great way for you to communicate with your customers because they're not used to finding you there. So you need to be directing them to the one spot that you're actually going to be checking, that may be your website, and make sure your web person is adding a banner to the top of the website or something. So all of those things worked in tandem. And thankfully we have relationships with most of the web development companies in the area too. So we're able to work with their web developers to make sure that the same messages are coming across. But yeah, Tony regretted his actions.
Did you learn anything like yourself for 2020, with 2020 happening, the pandemic? Did you learn something?
I learned the power of remote working. You know, we at Spry have been a remote team since the beginning. I've never had a group of people who had to come to a physical location. And so at the beginning, we were pretty cocky about the fact that, like, all of you who are having to shift to remote now, you know, we know how to do it. We know how to do it well. Here, listen to us. And that was true for maybe the first 2 months, but then when the constant onslaught of trauma was coming in, okay, now it's not just the pandemic, now it's the racial unrest that's happening throughout the country.
That's
now,
right. Yep.
now it's the fires. Now it's, I mean, remember 2020? Like, I'm almost tearing up thinking about how rough it was for everyone. So, I mean, remote working, we really leaned into how good we were at that, but we had to also learn how to lean on some other outside resources for mental health. You know, we brought in some mental health resources. We did some group counseling. And so I think just focusing and leaning hard on our company culture was something that we learned a lot during that time. Remote or not, people had to lean on their values. And the ones that did not lean on their values, you'll notice now, are losing employees. People are not wanting to go back to work. People are not wanting to go back to their offices because they got this taste for life outside of having to be in that rigid structure. And so I have leaned hard into just how to support a remote team, and it has paid off immensely. The amount of input that I get back from our employees about how much they appreciate the style of setup that we have has been just invaluable to me.
Well, that's a really interesting take, and maybe I'm inferring a little too far into that, but what I heard you say was that a lot of people are choosing not to go back to work because of their corporate culture that existed on a non-remote basis when you're working live and in person, where the narrative is people are lazy, people are getting government help, people are having trouble managing their work-life balance with their children and things. So I'm sure it's a combination of things, but that's an interesting take. Do you feel like one outweighs the other, or do you feel like that's a much larger issue than is getting noticed or the people are talking about?
I mean, I think that I do have a bit more of maybe a utopian lens than other people. My personal core values are like optimism, determination, and snacks, you know? And so I know that those things filter how I view things, but I don't think, from my experience, people aren't lazy. People have values, and when those values don't align, they check out because there's something disconnected inside them from what they're doing. And so I think when we can figure out, we have the space to actually figure out my values don't align with the company that I'm a part of, then we do check out, not because we're lazy, but because we care about our own connection to our soul.
There's a disconnect. The culture that was formed and that you were in, like, for years and years and years, you got a taste of that freedom. I don't want to say freedom, but that the alternative way of working.
Is it independence?
Independence. I mean, how many startup businesses started in 2020?
Tons.
There were so many of small business owners who popped up in 2020 because they were like, I don't want to make that person money. I can do this and I can add this and make myself money. I can be independent.
I remember telling my employees when the first couple weeks after pandemic started and everything was closing down, and we have like a weekly all team call, you know, and basically those calls were just diffusing for, everybody was venting and I'm just listening, and everybody's nervous and don't know what's going to happen. And like, are their jobs secure? And again, my lens, but I was like, I'm so excited. I'm like, the innovation from a disturbance like this, like a disruption like this, it takes things that were consistently in power and were just expected and just were, and it disrupts them. And so people who are small like us, who have we're agile. That agility is an advantage during these times of disruption. And I was excited. And I think that even just my optimistic attitude during that time helped everybody feel confident in doing their jobs and moving forward.
That's awesome. I mean, I love that. I mean, you talk about this connection with your soul, and people don't want to talk about that, right? I think that's a real thing, but that's not sexy. That's gooey and gushy, and I don't think people like to talk about that. And that leads to the mental health crisis that I alluded to at the end of part one, that we don't want to get into that. So let's talk about how terrible the government is. Let's talk about how terrible unemployment is, or let's talk about how this political ideology or that political ideology is bad. We want to talk about those things.
Or how lazy people are not wanting to work.
Sure.
Right.
Which
othering
is,
them,
yeah,
othering them.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to that. It's a really interesting take. I'd never heard anybody articulate it quite that way. That's awesome. So kind of along those same lines then, so how practically, you're the optimist, this is your business that you're driving towards this vision. So how practically do you start to try to put humanity back into social media?
Okay, digital literacy, I think, is the most succinct answer. Most people who are using social media don't understand how the algorithm works, don't understand who is actually developing the code for the platforms, or how that informs how we experience the code. And so part of our social media for good that we do is educating people on little things like how every action you take on social media impacts what ends up in your feed. Even if you're only reading the content, you click to kind of peruse the comments of this hateful post, that's an engagement. And the social media algorithm takes that as an engagement and says you would like to see more of that. Why? Because it's not human. It's a robot. And so it thinks that every action you take, it should show you more of. So we have to be a little bit smarter than that. Part of that is just teaching people that if you don't want to see more of this, there's actually actions you can take to not see more of that. You can hide. You can snooze someone for 30 days. There's so many different things that you can do to impact your algorithm, and people don't know about it yet. So actual digital literacy, I mean, if I'm honest, especially at this point for people 40 and above who weren't...
She poking at us?
Dealing with the four gloves. Hey,
I think she's poking
Good
at
thing
us.
I'm only 35.
I didn't get my AARP card yet, okay?
We call them digital, we call people under that like digital natives, right? Those of us who have kind of grown up with these platforms and understand a little bit about where to find hidden functions and that kind of thing. But just a sense of digital literacy, I think, is one of the biggest answers. Why is it then when you hit your news icon and you start looking through the news on Facebook, it has a headline, and the very first function that it has is a share button right next to the headline. Instead of having you read an article and then having the share button, that's a problem. And they're doing that. The platforms are doing that on purpose because they're profit centered. And if we have to understand that they're profit centered, and most people just see this as what is, instead of understanding the background and how they can actually affect their experience on social media.
I cannot tell you how awesome it is that was your answer. Because from somebody like you who talked about connecting soul and values and likes to dance and eat snacks, I expected a more emotional type answer, a more fluffy answer, right? But that is so important, and that is not being talked about at all. I love that answer, and that is great stuff.
Thank you. One of my future visions, maybe 10 years down the road. So the company name is Spry, right? Which is often, the word spry is often used to describe somebody who's old but still energetic. You know what I mean? I have this.
She's poking at us again.
I found that it's a soft spot, so it'll come up a few more times. I think.
Yeah.
But I have this vision of being able to take youth, like have nights where people who are digital natives could come in and teach people who are not digital natives, right? Like you bring your grandparents in who've been bugging you constantly about how to use this function, and they come to a Spry night, and there's other 20-year-olds who don't have to love your grandparents, who can answer their questions and kind of teach them some of the functions that will help them have a better experience. We can maybe unfollow all the people that every time they see that content, it's giving them an emotional response. So that's one of the future visions that I have for something that we could do to kind of bridge generations and be able to help people have a better experience through social media.
I think what you just said there is awesome, because you talked about bridging gaps. The one gap that I see in social media is the fact that there is no human-to-human interaction. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be present. That's why people are able to say hateful things and do things. There's no repercussion. You can be canceled on social media and then be up in 30 days with a new email, whatever. But if you keep people human to human, if you keep that human to human element involved and have social media part of that, I think that's where that bridge, and that's what you're talking about. You're bridging the two together. Mm-hmm. It's so important, in my opinion, for social media, because there's no consequence to what you're saying in the moment. Mm-hmm. I can look at you and tell by the influx of your voice or by the look in your eyes, like you're just messing around when you call me an old fart.
Maybe.
Right?
Well, I mean, here's a practice.
She will neither confirm nor deny.
Deflected that.
Here's a practical example of that too, just in what we're doing right now. So a lot of the times we're responsible for what I call presence management on social media, meaning that if there's a comment on a piece of content, it's our job to respond back to that comment. And so you'll see we have like a thread in Slack for each one of our clients, and there's teams for each client like that. And somebody will say, hey, I got this comment. Here's what I want to say back. How's this going to come off? What do you guys think? And I'll ask, well, what platform was it on? Was it on Facebook? Was it on, because that's going to infer that's going to impact how I give advice. And he goes in and he goes, actually, I also just noticed that it was posted at 3 a.m. And so, this person might have been in this mindset when they posted this. And so maybe we choose a different angle because of when they posted it and the aggressiveness of said comment. So being able to round table with people before you comment is a big deal. Being able to look at some of the context around people's comments is a big deal. And that's just kind of a practical way of how we humanize those connections on comments in social media.
That's awesome.
That's legit.
So I was going to ask about ROI for social media because that's an important topic. And I think you probably kind of already covered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, it's just a hot button topic for, other places I've worked, and, how do you define ROI for social media, both for your business and for your clients?
The metrics that we choose to use to focus on ROI is size of community. Okay, so making sure that when somebody comes to us, a lot of the times we're working with small businesses who maybe are showing up with, 400, 500 followers. We want to make sure that that's consistently growing. It doesn't mean that you have to have 20,000 followers in order to be successful, because you don't. It wouldn't even make sense for a lot of small businesses to have 20,000 followers, because they wouldn't even have the ability to have 20,000 customers based on their region and their offering. But we do want to make sure that that's something that's consistently growing. Also, we've screenshot a lot of these actual conversations that are happening. That's the return, is this relationship building that's happening through social media. That's the return. We struggle a little bit with clients who want to know a monetary return. Like, how do you put a monetary price on human connection? I haven't figured that out after 10 years. Whenever I get hit with that question, I still feel nervous. I get hot, and I, give the best answer that I can, which from my experience is that when you're showing up and you're building relationships, those leads come over time. And they build your business's reputation, they build your referral network over time, but there's no perfect equation or statistic that you can put to human connection that I've found so far.
So I'm listening.
See, I'm even nervous answering it.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important though, and that's why it's important to keep having this conversation, because it is really hard to put dollars and cents to the social media return. I mean, unless you're really using social media to drive leads and make sales, which some businesses do, but for most companies, that's not the case. I'm listening to a book right now called Dig Deep, and it's a really great book. But he actually references another book in his work, and I think it's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. I will link to all of that. But one of those disciplines was looking at leading goals and lagging goals. Mm-hmm. And when you were talking, it really kind of brought that up for me, because the lagging goals are your long-term sort of like company goals, right? These are your large financial goals. These are your large growth goals, where I'm going as a business. Where your leading goals are your activities. It's what you do on a daily basis. And it resonated with me because when I was in sales, and certainly in sales management, I didn't talk a lot about the number, right? Yeah, we got to get to X million dollars, or we need to make X number of sales, whatever it was. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about how many calls you made today. How many calls do you have to make on a daily basis? How many people do you need to talk to? How many pitches do you need to make a week, right? I always called it the sales math. That will ultimately, if we're doing those things every day, it'll take care of the lagging goals that we've set. And I think that's a lot of what you're talking about here, is that these are part of these leading goals on a daily basis. These are the activities that we need to be doing to nurture our business, to nurture the longer term goals that we have for the business. And how do you quantify that? Well, you can't. You quantify it in terms of activity, right? I'm engaged in this activity. I'm commenting back to people in an appropriate way. I'm growing my audience. I'm showing up authentically and doing those things. It was a long, drawn out way to try to connect that dot for you. But it really came up for me.
How many conversations are we having on social media? Like, that's a metric that I would love for people to be asking. I want to be having 10 genuine conversations on social media per month. If a client came to me like that, I would probably faint and then put that as like one of the sales pitches for us, is like, we'll work towards 10 conversations per month, because those are the things that actually lead to growth and sales, as opposed to, just the number of website clicks or just the number of posts. How many clients have I had to talk to about the fact that 7 posts a week, where you're getting 6 likes per post and no comments, is worthless? I've had to have that conversation over and over and over again with people, that we should dive deeper into making more meaningful content less often, and that will lead to a greater outcome. The math in social media is a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, one of the things you said earlier in our conversation was having fun doing it. Because social media is meant to be social, and it's meant to be fun and meaningful. And I think for a lot of us, we've lost that. And so that's one of the biggest takeaways I have from this is, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And let's not make it a chore. Let's do the things that make sense and really enjoy it. So,
yeah. Think about why you get on social media in the evening. Is it to be sold to? No. You just want to be entertained. You just want to feel a sense of connection. You just want to follow up with the people that you care about. So you have to be a brand that people care about.
Yeah. And make fun of the people who think the earth isn't flat. I mean, come on.
I don't understand that, Ben.
Wait, the earth isn't flat?
Let's let him just have his moment, just let him be over there.
I shouldn't poke him.
Lacey, this was unbelievable. I feel like we just barely scratched the surface. I mean, social media is so huge and so complex, and there is a lot of layers to it. But I'm really encouraged by the time we've had with you in our business and our time here tonight. It's you really got a lot of good insight as to how to really go about this in a meaningful way, both for success in business and success as individuals and in life and as a community. And that's what we're all about here. So thank you so much for joining us on the Business Over Beer podcast. We're going to leave it there for tonight. But before we go, Ben, it's time.
The time already?
I know, it went fast tonight.
It did.
Holy cow. All right. Lacey, it's time. Are you ready?
I don't know.
It's time for the final question. Are you
Okay.
ready?
I'm ready for the final question.
All right. So, Lacey, you are making a first question. Is it a GIF or a GIF?
GIF.
It's a GIF. You're making a GIF.
Okay.
That's incorrect, but that's okay.
I say GIF. He can say what he wants.
The guy who made it up called it a GIF. It's not me. It's on Jeopardy. Look it up.
Okay.
Go on.
Rest in peace, Al.
You're making a GIF
Okay.
for blank.
Okay.
Okay. This person is anybody you want to be.
Okay.
And it's about a place that you haven't been yet.
Okay.
Okay? Who is that GIF for, and where is that place?
Okay, I'm going to give it up to, it's Adrian. So Adrian is one of the lead digital strategists on our team.
Okay.
The place is Greece. Okay, Greece is somewhere I've always wanted to go, and I'm so jealous because one of her clients is a helicopter brand, and they fight fires. They're firefighting helicopters, and they go to Australia and they go to Greece. And so it's got to be one of their firefighting helicopters in Greece, but Adrian's there too because she has to manage it all from here, and I think she deserves a trip to Greece.
Love it.
Yep.
Awesome. Lacey, thank you again for being on the show. If people want to find out more about you and Spry social media, where would you like people to go?
Our handles on all the social media channels are at ThinkSpry. Our domain name is thinkspry.com. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. Lacey J. Faught, Faught. I will fight you forever.
Outstanding. And as always, everything that we talked about tonight, including Lacey's contact information, will be in the show notes and the blog post for this episode. Go check that out now.
Canope,
Yes.
if people want to find Business Over Beer, where do they go?
Find us? Yeah. They go to Biz Over Beer, bizoverbeer.com. Social media handles are there. Blog post is there. Great blog post, by the way. You can watch and you can listen to our podcast as well.
You're going to want to watch it. Our faces are adorable.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Lacey, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You've been awesome. I am so excited about you bridging the gap, especially bringing peace and goodwill on social media. We need that more now than ever, for sure.
Amen.
People listening, you're welcome. People watching, I am so sorry because,
Because his face is on the camera.
Well, thankfully, it's turned that way.
Well, AARP, we will be expecting my card soon. Canope, Kaler, members. We love you. See you all next time.
Good night.
Business Over Beer reminds you to always drink responsibly. Our theme song is Idiocracy by Christian Leo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Business Over Beer, a TH3 Entertainment production.